So this next little section is on osmoregulation and the kidneys. So osmoregulation then is an example of homeostasis, which is just maintaining a constant internal environment despite what's going on the outside. And in this case, osmoregulation is controlling the concentration of water in the blood. So usually in biology, anything with osmo is something to do with the movement of water. So next year, or in year 12, you'll be looking at osmosis, which is the movement of water from a high concentration to a low concentration. Now, this is really important because if there is too much water in the blood, the cells can swell and burst. If there's too little water, water will leave the cells and the cells can die. So either way, if there's too much water or too little water, the cells in the body can die. So therefore, it needs to be really, really carefully controlled. So this just shows you where the kidneys are. So the kidneys are in your abdomen, which is this area of your body. So the kidneys are there. They get their blood supply from the aorta, which comes down in there, and then it branches off to the renal artery to the kidneys. When the blood is in the kidneys, it gets filtered, and the kidneys produce urine, which runs down the ureters into the bladder, and then you pee it out your body through the urethra. Now, the kidneys as well are part of the excretory system, which is basically a system for removing waste. And as I say here, osmoregulation is an example of homeostasis, which was maintaining constant concentration of water in the blood. It's carried out by the kidneys. They remove water from the blood by producing urine, which is then stored in the bladder before you pee it out. Now the next thing to think about would be, where do we actually get all this water from? So the water which we gain is pretty much from drinking or from the food that we eat. There's also a small amount which is produced from cell respiration, which produces water as a byproduct. Now you'll remember there that the equation for respiration was glucose plus oxygen, which gives carbon dioxide plus water. So water is actually a waste product from respiration. So we get water from drinking, eating food, and respiration. But we also lose water in several ways. There's evaporation from the lungs. So if you breathe on a bit of glass, you can see that your breath out has water in it. We lose water from evaporation while sweating. We produce urine, and there's also moisture or water in feces. So helping me out here is my little dog. Hello, Alfie. Look. Are you helping make the videos? Hello. Hey. Hello. Hello. What are you doing? Lol. So anyway, getting back to this then. This shows where we gain water from, and this shows where we lose water from. So we can gain water through drinking, eating, and respiration, but we lose water through urine, sweat, breath from lungs, and feces. Now, if you have a look at this, what you'll notice is the amount of water that we take in equals the amount of water that we lose. So that's how your body balances how much water it's taking in. Whatever it gains is the amount that it loses. And that's what it tries to do in most situations. So the volume of water in or gained equals the volume of water lost. So that's what our body will constantly try and do. If the conditions change, so let's say for example, you drink 2 litres, so 2000 centimetre cubed. That would then take our total up to 2,900. Now, what's going to happen as a result of that is the amount of urine you produce is going to go up, so the amount of water you lose is going to go up. If it got really, really hot and you started sweating loads, and let's say it went up to that, that would also go up. So the amount that you would have to drink would be much, much more. So your body basically tries to balance the amount of water you're taking in with the amount of water you're taking out. So if conditions change, then osmoregulation brings the volume of water back to the normal concentration. Now, as we've been saying this whole time, this was an example of homeostasis, which is maintaining a constant internal body environment. So in different conditions, like for example warm weather or vigorous exercise, the body loses more water as sweat. This can be partially balanced by the amount of water we drink, but the kidneys also produce a more concentrated urine containing less water. If we drink larger volumes of liquid than normal, the kidneys act to bring the volumes back into balance by producing large volumes of dilute urine. So basically, if it's very warm, we will sweat more, so you get more concentrated urine. Whereas if we drink lots of water, we will produce more urine, which will be less concentrated. Now, in both of these examples, we've changed the amount of water in the body, so our kidneys have corrected it by changing the amount of urine that we produce. Now let's try and apply this to a real life situation. So this table shows the amount of water gained and lost by a boy who played a game of football on a warm summer day. So here's what we got. This is the water gained, this is the water lost. So drank 2,500 centimetre cubed water, ate 700 centimetre cubed and got 700 centimetre cubed water, and then carried out 200 centimetre cubed of cell respiration. So altogether gained 3,400 centimetre cubed. Amount of water lost equal that. Now, this is a different volume of water that we looked at before, but the basics are still the same. In what ways would the water loss change when the boy is playing football? So there would be more water lost, and the reasons for that would be sweat and by breathing more often. Now, how does he compensate for these losses? So how does he make up for it? He would have to drink more water. Then, what will the urine produced by the kidneys be like? So, if he is losing more water, it basically means that the urine after exercise, now we need to say two things about it. There would be a smaller volume and it would be more concentrated. Now, let's say for example that you get asked what would happen to urine after drinking a large volume of water. The two things that you would say about the urine afterwards would be there'd be a larger volume and it would be more dilute. Or you could say less concentrated. So moving on then, the next part is all about the kidneys. So as we say, it's part of the excretory system, and its function is to remove waste from the body and carry out osmoregulation. Now, this is the excretory system altogether. So we've got the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. And that is the excretory system, those four things. Now, this diagram also shows you the vena cava, artery, aorta, renal artery, and renal vein, just because the important thing with the excretory system is that it has a really good blood supply. So here we are, this is a real life kidney. So, this part here going in fact, let's get a different colored pen. This part going in here is the renal artery, and that sends blood into the kidney. This part coming out is the renal vein. So basically what happens is the blood goes into this region, it gets filtered, and then the blood comes back out again. But all the waste products are going to go down this part, which is the ureter, and that's going to go on down to the bladder to get stored. Now, if we just get rid of all that, well, in fact, we'll keep the ureter here. So if you just look at the structure of this, there's three main areas that we can split the kidney into. This part. So on the outside, we've got the cortex. This area between here and here is called the medulla, and this area here is called the pelvis. Now, medulla literally just means middle. So what we said happens, or what we're going to say happens here, is blood comes in through the renal artery. It then goes up into the cortex, comes back down into the medulla. The urine gets produced, and then the urine travels out down through the ureter to the bladder. So blood comes in the renal artery, up to the cortex, down through the medulla. The urine gets produced in the medulla and travels down through the pelvis, down through the ureter to the bladder where it's stored. And then the blood, which has now been filtered, travels back out through the renal vein to the rest of the body. So here's what happens. The blood passes through the aorta, and then it travels into the kidney through the renal artery. When it reaches the cortex of the kidney, much of the liquid portion of the blood and many of the substances dissolved in it are filtered out. Then in the medulla region, water and other substances are reabsorbed back into the blood in a controlled way until normal concentrations are reached. So just to summarize that then, blood from the heart travels in the aorta, then it goes to the renal artery, then from there it goes to the cortex, then the medulla, and then the blood goes back the renal vein, then to the vena cava, then back to the heart again. Now, where does the urine come into this? Let's use a nice shade of yellow for the urine. Yeah. So, at this point, when the blood reaches the medulla, it gets filtered, and we get the urine produced, which then travels to the pelvis, then to the ureter, then to the bladder, and then leaves the body through the urethra. So that's basically summarizing all that. So this section shows the flow of blood, and this section shows how urine is produced and leaves the body. Now, because this is the hormone section, you might have been thinking here, well, where do hormones come into it? The main hormone which carries out osmoregulation is anti-diuretic hormone. Now, you might have heard of a diuretic before as being something that makes you pee more. So you can think of anti-diuretic hormone as something that makes you pee less. So here's what it does. The process of reabsorption of water back into the blood by the kidneys is controlled by the hormone ADH, or anti-diuretic hormone. ADH is produced by part of the brain where the amount of water in the blood is monitored. The ADH is released into the blood and travels to its target organ, the kidneys. In the kidney medulla, ADH allows more water to pass from the urine back into the blood to be reabsorbed. As a result, the urine has a lower volume and is more concentrated. So anti-diuretic hormone makes you pee more concentrated and a lower volume of urine. Now, because we've been talking about hormones here, we'll remember that hormones are proteins which act as chemical messengers. They're released from glands and travel in the blood to target organs. So if we're looking at ADH, it is produced in the brain, more specifically the pituitary gland. It travels in the blood and its target organ is the kidneys. Now here's how ADH works. So let's start here as the start point. So at the start, we've got a normal concentration of water in the blood. The next thing we do is drink a large amount of water. Now this means that the concentration of water in the blood rises. The next thing is the brain, because it's constantly monitoring concentrations of water in the blood, it releases less ADH. The kidneys then reabsorb less water from the blood, and then large volumes of dilute urine are produced, and we go back to normal water concentration. Okay, so in this case, it was an example of homeostasis because we want to maintain a normal concentration of water in the blood. We drank extra water, so that means that we produced more urine. Now, for that to happen, what had to happen was the concentration of water had to increase, our brain had to detect it, and then it had to release less ADH. Now remember, ADH is there to reabsorb water, or it helps your kidneys reabsorb water. So if you release less of it, your kidneys don't absorb as much water. Because they don't absorb much water, it means that they produce more urine. Like this little guy. Now, I suppose if you try and think of that as a real life example, let's say it was a hot day and you drank a lot of water. The blood reaching their brain will contain more water than normal. So in response, the brain reduces the production of ADH. In the kidney, no ADH means less water is reabsorbed to the blood, leaving large volumes of dilute urine to be produced. Now, of course, you could look at that the opposite way. So let's say, for example, we have normal, that's a bit of a fat pen, normal water concentration in the blood, and then the concentration of water decreases. Now, how that could happen is we exercise, or we just sweat a lot. I don't know, maybe you're a very sweaty person, so your concentration of the water in the blood decreases. Your brain detects that change. This time it releases more ADH because it wants to stop you peeing as much. So the kidneys reabsorb more water. So then you get a small volume of concentrated urine, and that tries to get our water concentration in the blood back to normal.